Hello, my name is Professor Ian Williamson, and I have the great privilege of serving as the Dean of the Paul Merage School of Business at the University of California, Irvine. Welcome to another episode of the Dean's Thought Leaders Seminar Series. Today we have with us Ms. Jennifer Pawlitz. She leads the Western Division of UBS's Wealth Management. This is the division that has over 3,000 employees and over $3 billion in revenue. She is also co-chair of the UBS's Diversity Council. Prior to her time at UBS, she served in executive roles at Merrill Lynch and US Bank, and she's been recognized by multiple media outlets for her contributions to the finance sector. It is truly a privilege to have you with us today, Jennifer. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dean Williamson. It's great to be here.
So I wanted to talk to you about the last 18 to 24 months. Obviously, this is the thing that's on everyone's mind. The word that oftentimes is used is disruptive. And I'd be curious to get your thoughts on how you in the finance sector have thought about this period of time and what disruptions you've seen and perhaps how you've responded to them as an organization.
Well, disruption is a great word. I heard you speak the other day and you said your definition of disruption is that an activity that used to work even at a high level doesn't work anymore. So I think that's a good one that I'll steal from you.
My pleasure.
But we've certainly seen, I think in this time, what's really important, which is to talk about what doesn't change when a whole lot else is uncertain. So in times of uncertainty, talking about what doesn't change is almost more important to start with. So clarity of vision, clarity of values, and really where we're headed. And it helps to consider what hasn't changed. I'll use an analogy for the entertainment industry, what they've seen, because we've all been consumers of that, certainly during the pandemic. Yes. And the power of great content has not changed in the entertainment industry, but what has changed is how people acquire that content and how consumers want to consume it. And so using that analogy to our industry in the finance world and financial services, the power of really good content and intellectual capital that's relevant to clients is more important than ever, but how we reach them and how and when they want to consume it has changed. And so essentially we've seen, like all industries, 3 to 5 years of acceleration in the technology industry and how we use technology to reach people and how people adopt technology, because it's more acceptable now to use technology where it used to be get on a plane for the meeting or be in person. And then also within the communication, we see asking more resonant questions and getting to the heart of the matter and what happens and what's most important to people more quickly is also a big change. And helping people get to that so they can reach people better. And then the last thing I'll say also on communication is we've been inundated, all of us, with Zooms with 25, 50, 100 people. And so in talking to our team, I've said, think about communication in 3 buckets: one-to-one, one-to-many, which is a little overloaded, and small group dialogue. And that third area is where people are kind of starved right now, is to have a dialogue two-way, because the sense of communicating, and you think of the root word of community, it means in Latin to engage together. And that's the piece that I think we've seen is really important in the disruption. So we see our clients want to speak to the heart of the matter about legacy and impact. So talking about those things matters most in our industry right now.
So you talked a little bit about how it's impacted your clients, and you've talked a little bit about how your organization has responded, but you know, this is a journey that has required leadership, and that's a very personal story. And I'd be really curious to get your thoughts on, you know, how have you reflected as a leader going through this experience? What has this taught you about leadership, and what would you take forward going in terms of thinking about, you know, what do you take from this time?
That's a great reflection for all of us. And I think about it in terms of the question to ask ourselves, how do I reset my own leadership with what I've learned? And I would say one thing is being purpose-driven and intentional in leading ourselves and in leading others. That goes back to, that's the thing that doesn't change, that's really important. Why are we here? What are we here to do? Who are we here to serve? And someone told me a long time ago, and I don't think I picked up on it years ago, but now more than ever, is the soft stuff drives the hard stuff. And so keeping that in mind. And then in this reset, I think of kind of like 4 E's essentially. One is expecting to feel and acknowledge other people's mixed emotions. We've been through a lot collectively and individually, and even reuniting for some people is hard in the middle of the pandemic. Things are different. So giving grace to ourselves and to others. I'm not sure I'd give myself an A on that before, but I'm learning it even more than ever. And, you know, I think about the deeper someone's pain, the fewer words you use, but the more important your presence is, and to be present in that moment. So that's the first E, is expecting the emotions and giving grace and space for that. The second one I'd say is extracting the lessons learned, which is really what you're doing through this leadership series, and reflecting on what matters most now, what doesn't matter. What about my relationships? What about the pace of my life? And for our clients, we're helping them think through those things too. How do I use my time? How do I use my money? What is my money here to do in service of? So extracting those lessons learned. And then the last two are very complementary, and they're eliminating the non-essentials in my life, the things that really don't matter anymore. Someone said to me, think about making a don't do list instead of a do list. And then the complementary and final action would be, since we eliminate the non-essentials, is excel at what truly matters most once that's identified. And I think about managing our time. The secret is selection. So it's really about saying no and what do we say yes to. My mother, on a personal level, practiced her flute for an hour every day, because once we were able to get together in person, she said what matters most to her is to play flute duets again. And you got to believe that matters a lot more to me than it used to. So whether it's personal or professional, those are some of the resets to the leadership that I think about.
You know, I thought the 4 E's, that really resonates, but I think that notion of grace, it's so critical. Just this notion that, you know, none of us have been at our best selves. We've all been dealing with major challenges just because of all the uncertainty. And I really appreciate you identifying that as an important part of leadership during this point in time, because I think it really is quite critical.
Well, our batteries have all been drained.
Yeah.
And so thinking about where do we want to deploy the energy, understanding it's less than we used to have, no matter how strong and healthy we are, and giving margins in the page is that grace to ourselves and to other people when we need to feel something, when we need to have a conversation, when we need to just pull back a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important. So another interesting sort of topic to think about is the expectations that now exist in our society. And we've always had an expectation that companies play a role in society other than just driving economic outcome. But certainly what we've seen over the last 2 years is a broadening expectation by society that firms play a very active role in addressing some of the most challenging issues we see in society today. And this is everything from issues around racial discrimination to participation to inequality, access, many things that I think oftentimes CEOs did not think would be part of the job of being a CEO, but now quite squarely it is. And I would love to get your thoughts on what you see as being the responsibility of businesses and business leaders to this expectation that now quite clearly society has of organizations.
Well, I'm on the side of more responsibility for business leaders is a really great thing to lean into. Because if you think about it, if our purpose is greater and the meaning is greater on what we can contribute, that feels good to be in leadership at that point and at this point in time. So, but I see business as a platform for serving people, whether our people are our clients, whether our people are our colleagues and employees, or whether our people are our community. And you and I getting together is a great example of that. As business leaders, we're agents for change, and we have a responsibility to use our influence and our voice for good, and to be thoughtful and intentional about where we want to use that voice, especially for people who have no voice or little voice. And so in our industry, the Paycheck Protection Program is one example, helping people get access to funds for their businesses. We look at the UN Sustainable Development Goals as critical in terms of climate change, racial inequality, income inequality, and asking our clients, which of these goals matters to you? How do you want to contribute? How can we help you in that path? Because in the conversations around their wealth, it's really in 3 L's. It's liquidity, it's longevity, and it's legacy. So we think about that is to maintain your lifestyle, to improve your lifestyle, but the third piece, legacy, is to improve the lives of others. So who are the others that you want to improve? I think about helping underserved high schoolers have access to financial literacy in the Life Vest program at UCI, where a number of us from UBS came and gave our education and our experiences to that. That's critically important because that will help the whole next generation. So businesses offering their people, their expertise, and their access, time, talent, and treasure is really important for those less fortunate. And then personally within the leadership role, because this matters a lot to me, and I'm also in a unique position to be able to help people. One is to help hire, promote, and develop women and diverse people, because years ago I was kind of one of the few overseeing a P&L. So giving people the open doors to do that, on the one hand creating open doors and jobs, and on the other hand encouraging them that 50% qualified, that little voice inside of you is perfect. That's enough. Just step in and go for it. And you know, I say diversity is a fact. We can measure facts. Inclusion is a choice. We can make choices, but belonging is a feeling. And that feeling is what we want in our culture and in our company. So, and our clients expect it. So that's really important from a commercial and a business perspective as well. And then second, further learning and growth. We obviously believe in learning and development. And I say learning is a strategic action that helps you, a strategic advantage that helps you take more effective action. So I think that's really important. And then finally, infusing your values into leadership. It's critical as business leaders now more than ever. Is what do we stand for and what do we do about that?
Yeah, thank you. So last question, thinking about, you know, obviously we're a university we have, and people come here with the expectation that it's the stepping stone to something else. And you're a perfect person, I think, to answer the question, what should they be preparing for and how should they prepare for it?
Great question. I'll think about it in 2 parts, Ian, a strategic level and then maybe a skills or tactical level. And on a strategic level, being really clear about who you are, what's your purpose, what gives you meaning, and connect with people who have shared values, but at the same time, put people around you who see the world very differently. I mean, think about just the most simplistic definition of diversity, and that's the presence of difference. We make better business decisions, life decisions, and have better outcomes with that presence of difference. So being clear about who you are and those shared values, but at the same time, people around you who see the world differently, as long as you have that base camp shared. So that's something strategically, and then I'm sure you would agree, all leaders are learners. So continuing to learn, grow, and bring up people alongside you. So those are the strategic thoughts. The tactical skills I think are really, really important for all of us, not just the students, but those of us that have been in business for quite a few years, is 3 areas of competence. One is digital and data competence. The second is cultural competence. And the third is leadership competence on a horizontal level, because I think the world's changed. So first, digital and data competence. It's funny, my son was a computer science major, and years ago he said to us, Mom and Dad, everybody needs to take a language. And it's not French or Spanish necessarily, it's coding. Yeah. Everyone needs to learn to code. And I would just broaden that and back up a step and say ongoing technological competence is important. So for instance, our team has a 20-minute huddle once a week on what else do we need to learn on technology or on data, and using data to inform our decisions. Second, cultural competence. We need to become good and understood and understanding of other people that come from different backgrounds than we come from. That's going to be a language that we need, and we need to be able to have those conversations for different cultures, different religions, multicultural in every single way, including sustainable and that area. And then the third, I would say, is learning to lead and create impact horizontally. And not just the fact that we have hybrid work arrangements and remote and we're dispersed, but also that communication doesn't happen top down anymore. It's teams of teams. And so how we do that as leaders and create impact in very dispersed teams where people communicate horizontally is going to be a strategic advantage to people's careers in the future. And I admire and like the way you're bringing business community and the academia community all together to help contribute to these young people.
Well, thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much for your insight. I'm sure the listeners and watchers of this are going to gain great value out of that. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.